I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:31. We're going to determine that there's a quorum present. Commissioner Wardle, Commissioner Vasquez, Commissioner Middleton, and myself, we have a quorum. Please, if you would stand so we can pledge allegiance. Commissioner Vasquez.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank y'all. Please be seated. Item number 4, discussion and possible action on using county funds for the health and public safety of the citizens of Valverde County as it relates to the massive influx of immigrants. Mr. Garza, I want to get this started.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Judge Owens and County Commissioners Court. I'd like to begin just to give a brief overview on the county's role in terms of supporting the efforts that have transpired due to the community response, if you will. Back in April, beginning of April, a group was formed known as the Valverde Border Humanitarian Coalition, where a series of meetings and outreach that the pastors and a few of the faith-based organizations formed a group upon the advisement of Border Patrol to help, and specifically partnering with NGOs, non-government organizations. Through the Office of Emergency Management and myself, along with Judge Owens and Tom Garcia, we met with the coalition in response to the information we're getting from Border Patrol in terms of the influx of refugees seeking asylum. An effort was put forth by the city to rent a building to the coalition for a transition point. And to date, nearly 2,300 individuals have been transitioned through the Chihuahua Center due to the work of the coalition. We've assisted in helping maintain organization within the group and help with resources to the best of our ability. We have not extended any direct funds for the effort outside of helping out with some equipment to assist. Upon working with the coalition, there was the need for some showers and need for washing clothing. So we reached out to the Southern Baptist Convention, and they assisted with those resources. In addition, we reached out to the Salvation Army, and to date they provided, now for 3 weeks, a mobile kitchen that's assisted the coalition in the transitioning center, as well as a bunk house for volunteers and a host of commodities to feed the individuals. Typically, what the transition center has seen, and I can speak only to the transition center, in so much as the shelter is being run by the city of Del Rio, we've seen that on average, the transition center will see anywhere between 100 to 150 individuals, of which to date, due to the transportation, limited transportation in our community, we did reach out to Greyhound specifically and spoke to the chief operating officer and asked for assistance in getting some more bus lines from Greyhound, which to date have been provided to allow the ease of transportation for the individuals. But I say that because the biggest obstacle has been transportation at the transition center. Various private bus lines, van lines have been contributing and assisting, and at most, individuals that do get dropped off by Border Patrol at the transition center stay for no more than a few hours, and they make MoneyGram arrangements to get funds to pay for the fare to San Antonio. The vast majority of them are going to the Northeast. So to date, on a given day, they stay, if they're not able to make travel arrangements, individuals are staying no more than a day. We've seen few stay for a day, but most are able to leave that same day, if not the next day by morning time. The coalition has also been very diligent on leverage funds to the tune of about $113,000 in leverage funds and donations, counting up volunteer man hours and associated items that they've been able to acquire for the last 4 weeks. As we understand, and I know we'll be briefed by Border Patrol momentarily, is this is a situation where at least the county's role and involvement has been to help manage the crisis, if you will, and to assist the coalition to help get these individuals to their point of destination where they're not a burden to our community.
Real quick, when we started this, we had, Greyhound had 2 small buses. So now
2 small mini buses, yeah.
And now we're up to 2, the largest buses.
Full-size buses,
And
correct.
they're running later on in the morning and later on in the afternoon just to be able to help get these people out
Correct.
when they're released.
They accommodated their schedule based upon what we were seeing and the number of drops, number of drop-offs, which were occurring later in the evening, which the first 4 or 5 days that was posing the biggest problem because the bus was leaving, I think, at 1, and so now they're able to shift that to 5 o'clock in the afternoon to where we're able to get the individuals on the way.
And then Aguila, I think we went from 1 to 4.
They were operating with 1 to 2 maybe, but now they've increased their capacities, and so they're up to as many as maybe 5 or 6 vans a day. Correct.
And then San
There's Varientos, and there's 2 other private carriers, and they go straight to Dallas, and they also operate two vans.
And then in the last 3 days, we've had somebody that started helping with a 40 passenger and a 55 passenger.
Correct. So the 55 passenger will be on the road tomorrow.
So, I mean, the whole thing, when all this got started, our focus was to make sure that we could,
Transition.
Yeah, transition. There
Correct,
we go.
correct.
Sorry for pronouncing.
So what we're seeing.
To transition them as fast as possible and get them out of Auburn County.
Correct.
The biggest problem we had was the buses. There was no transit system in place
Correct.
that could handle the mass influx of individuals. So now, with all these buses, are we going to have to house them? I mean, do we still have to get them?
So some are having difficulty with respects to getting the funds to get to their point of destination. They are released from Border Patrol custody with a point of destination. They've given Border Patrol upon release an address of where they're going. So many of them that do stay behind is because they're still pending their arrangements for the money to be sent through MoneyGram, and or they're either going to catch a flight and have to wait a day or 2 to leave Del Rio.
And the way it looks right now, 2 or 3 people, I think, is all the other people have bought their tickets. Everybody else has been able to come.
Yes,
in
sir.
with money.
Most all of them, with the exception of 2 or 3, have not been able to make contact with their family or with the individuals that they were making funds arrangements with, and so therefore those individuals would stay the day or 2, and then the coalition would pay their trip to San Antonio so that they could board a bus there in San Antonio.
One of the things that we had talked about at the very beginning, I think, we had trying to be nicer. We had a group of people that were trying to get them to their end destination versus just trying to get them.
Correct. So logistically, the coalition may have bit off a bit more than they could chew, if you will. So they were trying to book from Del Rio through to their point of destination. So to remedy that, the decision was made just to get them from Del Rio to San Antonio, make that travel arrangement, and they were able to push the traffic out.
And when that decision was made, that was actually made it easier.
Correct. Correct. Because they were having to wait. The CEO, Greyhound, basically said there's a bottleneck in San Antonio, so regardless if I bring more fleet, they're going to bottleneck in San Antonio. You're trying to buy it through tickets, so just book to San Antonio, and you at least get them to San Antonio where they have larger capacities to deal with what's occurring.
And that helped with us here in Auburn.
Correct. Right. Where we were anticipating at least 75 staying overnight to 150. That trickled down to no more than 30. Some nights now we've seen as high as many as 50 or 60, but it's getting better now with the new fleet that's on the ground. And Greyhound indicated us that no sooner than June the 20th would they may be able to add more drivers and more fleet to increase capacity. So we're waiting on them.
Salvation Army.
So Salvation Army has committed to a large degree what they call canteening, and they've been manning the mobile operation. We understand that unit will be in Del Rio for no more than 2 more weeks to assist with feeding, where they're averaging, roughly 30 to 60 meals a day. And the showers, as I indicated before, they've extended those just a tad bit. Showers and the washroom area and the bunker house will be extended to June the 15th. So after June 15th, another option has to become available in order to run at the capacity, or at least the services that are being utilized through the transition center.
Commissioners? Questions? again, when we started all this, it seemed like our focus was to get them out, and it's changed somewhere in the middle, but right now our focus needs to be, I can't speak for all of us, but our focus is what we're gonna be a part of needs to be to transition them to another.
Yeah, continue to assist the transition center in being more efficient and moving folks out that same day is the goal.
To transition them.
To their point of destination, correct. And I will say, Judge, as you're aware of, we've been working with Border Patrol. They've been a great partner in this effort and have provided a lot of key technical assistance to help make this process work smoothly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chief, please.
Hide in the back.
It didn't work. Chief, real quick,
Good evening.
real quick, we had spoke earlier, and I guess one of the main concerns that I'm hearing is if we help, we're going to end up getting more people. That's not the case. Or is it?
So, thank you, Judge, for providing me an opportunity to talk a little bit about what's going on right now and what we anticipate is going to continue to happen, at least for the foreseeable future, until potentially there is some sort of congressional fix or a remedy that happens outside of probably all of our control. I will tell you, this sector has seen a dramatic increase in the amount of traffic. Right now, we're averaging 254 apprehensions a day, and to date, we've apprehended 34,000 people already in the sector. That's a 218% increase than what we were last year. And so what this does, and specifically, we're talking about family units. That's the only people that we will be releasing into this community are family units. Family units make up about 18,000 of the population of 34,000 that we have apprehended. Now, historically, we were able to hold an awful lot of those family units, but we've seen increases across the entire southwest border, from San Diego all the way down to the mouth of the Rio Grande and Brownsville. Every sector is up. There was a point where Big Bend wasn't, now Big Bend is even up. And so we're all competing for the same beds. So ultimately what we would like to do, Judge, if we apprehend somebody, we'd like to put them in detention with our ICE partners and then transport them back to their home country after they see a judge. We don't have enough beds. We've got 51,000 people in custody right now across the nation that represent family units and others, adult population, and Congress has not funded ICE beyond the number of beds that they have right now. So that forces the Border Patrol to process the individuals we apprehend as quickly as we possibly can, and then get them released so they can make it to their final destination and wait for an immigration hearing. What's happened now is we are over capacity. I have the capacity right now to hold up about 865 people in this sector. The sector goes from Carrizo Springs all the way to Comstock, all the way up to Abilene. I'm at almost 1,200 people in custody. I have established 3 tents in Eagle Pass, Texas to help me with that capacity, so we're not having to keep people out in the sun in very difficult conditions. But even that is still not going to be enough. So our goal has always been to process people as quickly as we possibly can and either get them transferred to ICE or if they're family units, get them released. I just transferred from Rio Grande Valley, where they have 8,000 people in custody right now. They are averaging about 1,500 apprehensions a day. So I have an awful lot of experience in dealing with these high numbers and volumes. And so when we initially had this conversation a couple of months ago, I told the team that it would be in the community's best interest to be able to transition these folks out of here as quickly as you possibly can, because the last thing you want is for people with limited means to be able to start homesteading in these border communities. When we apprehend them, most of the people that we apprehend do not say we're going to Del Rio, Texas. They say they're going to Maryland, Virginia, Houston, North Carolina, on and on and on. So our goal has always been to facilitate apprehension, process, and removal or transition to a point where they have family members or some sort of support system and they don't become a burden on the communities, especially here along the southwest border. The numbers aren't going to stop. There's nothing I can do. I can't put more Border Patrol agents out there. They're not trying to evade apprehension. They are turning themselves into our Border Patrol agents. And then over the last probably 30 days, the African population has really risen. And that's something that we weren't expecting. We knew they were in Acuña, we knew they were in Piedras Negras, but we were thinking that they were going to wait and try and make their way through the port of entry, and they would be able to be managed. Once the river dropped, all of them came across. At one time, we had 116 about 5 days ago, and then over the last 24 hours, or maybe 36 hours, we had another 150. To date, we have had over 500 Africans from Congo, Congolese, Angola, on and on and on, that have come through this sector alone. That no other sector is seeing that. So I know there are some health concerns. So one of the things that we do for everybody that we apprehend is we do a medical screening. We have EMTs, we have folks that have been detailed in here to help us screen these individuals, so we're not releasing anybody on the street that's sick or has a communicable disease that could potentially be turned into something worse in a community. We are also establishing a medical contract that will come online at the end of the month, so we will have not just Border Patrol agents, but full-time professionals doing these medical screenings, and that should help us out considerably. Do we have an expectation that more Africans are going to come through this sector? Yeah, we do know that there's probably a couple hundred more that are staged in Acuña with us right now. I don't know at what time frame they will come through, but we do expect that at some point they will cross. The rain helped us out a little bit yesterday because the river came up, so they're not going to cross that rear dam when the river's up. But I do expect us to continue to see an increase in traffic, to include family units. The last thing we want to do as a Border Patrol agency, as a government, is to apprehend single adults, males, and then release those. And that's one of the things that we've drawn a line in the sand we're not going to do. Questions?
Chief, real quick, we talked about this earlier. Again, our goal is to transition, and that's the word, nice word, out of town. And we talked about maybe helping, if y'all can help. And I know y'all are good. It's just rough. But if we could get them released a little bit sooner, you said you were going to look at that way. But later on in the afternoon, past 6:37, if they get released, we don't have the ability to move them. And you said you were going to look into that. See if we can get them released a little bit earlier. But like you said, a lot of that's out of your control because they need to get out.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that factor in there. Obviously, I can't control when they cross the river, but I can control when we process. But I'm up against how many people I can have in custody because I don't want to put my agents in jeopardy or the folks that are detailed in here helping me. By the way, and so the community knows, I've got 175 officers, customs officers from across the country. We have some air marshals. We also have some DHS personnel that have been sent here, that are staying in our hotels, that are eating at our restaurants, that are becoming part of this community, that are spending money to help us with this crisis. I know it's not, the shining star that we want to see, but the federal government is doing something to help us manage this as best we can. And as we said, Judge, I'm here to tell you as a chief, I'm going to do everything I can because I live in this community to make sure that I limit the impact to this community and I ensure that, we stay safe. I'm not going to let anybody out on the street that's a threat. I'm not going to let anybody out on the street who's got a criminal record. Those folks, we'll find a bed for them or we'll hang on to them as long as we possibly can till we prosecute them and get them back to their home country. The folks that are being released right now is either a father with a child, a mother with a child, or a family unit. And we just don't have bed space throughout the country for them anywhere.
And then one of the deals also we talked about, it's probably going to continue until the next year's election.
Yeah, so
Putting you on the spot.
no, it's fine, Judge. I just returned from our Chiefs Conference in Artesia, New Mexico last week, and the conversation centered around, okay, how long can we hold and prepare to manage this crisis? Because you've got this humanitarian crisis, you've got this, border security crisis that is creating because the cartels are taking advantage of some of this, and then certainly you have this policy crisis that none of us can really, y'all can weigh in obviously with your elected officials, but outside of that, I don't own that. And so we expect, at least for the next 18 months, that we're going to be dealing with numbers similar to what we're dealing with. Our hope is that it isn't higher or much higher, that this sort of levels out. Typically, June and July are our busiest months of the year. And so right now, if it stays the way it is and I get the temporary shelters up, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape, CDP, to be able to manage this. And then it's just a matter of coordinating with the communities. Eagle Pass is a little unique because they have transportation centers that have been established for a long time, and so they have already been moving bodies out relatively quickly, so they don't have to stay in a shelter. What our transportation centers here are trying to play catch up now, and they went from the small buses to the larger buses. And so if we can leverage those transportation nodes, if we can leverage the shelter as much as we possibly can, I think the community will see a very small impact to their everyday lives, and that's ultimately what we want.
I want to commend you and your team. You all done a phenomenal job with children. And I appreciate everything y'all do. And I know we honestly do have this community part. I'm hoping that at some point people in Washington will wake up and realize that we need to do something. But in the meantime, I'm thankful that we have you and your team here dealing with this.
I appreciate that, Commissioner, and I will tell you, for the whole community here, I'm going to be an advocate for change. I want, this is my last stint. I grew up here. I'm done after a couple of years, but I'm going to do everything I can to provide as many resources for this community as I can over the next couple of years. And what does that mean? I'm going to ask for more Border Patrol agents. I was going to ask for more customs officials. We're going to ask for more technology on the border, infrastructure, roads, all those things that make our job better. And in return, there should be some second and third order effects for this community. We'll have more agents that are part of this community, and I think that's a good thing. So thank you for your kind words, Commissioner.
Thank you, Agent Ortiz, for all your help for the community. And I just want to let people know here, the community know, we'll be working here hopefully with, I know where Judge Owens stands and where I stand. I'll do whatever I can do to work together with the team and, expedite these people out of here and make the community safe.
No, I appreciate that. That's the key, right? The speed of transitioning these individuals to wherever they're ultimately going, and let that community deal with them there.
As quickly as we can, but thank you for all your work.
Appreciate that.
No problem.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate the Border Patrol. Without the Border Patrol, I don't know where we would be. We'd be in a heck of a mess. We're in a mess, but it would be much worse. Just want to thank you and your team.
No, I appreciate that. Just so the community knows, just in the 2 months that I've been here, the team has done an amazing job. Every week we've sworn in new Border Patrol agents that are coming to Del Rio, Eagle Pass, Carrizo Springs, Brackenville, Comstock. And so these new agents, once they get done in the academy in Artesia, New Mexico, will come back here, live here, buy houses, and all those things. And that's going to continue. We just did 5 more on Monday. So we're going to get there.
I'm proud of our Border Patrol.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the reasons that I asked him to come speak, also was because we had we've been dealing with this. The date that keeps being put out is May 8th. But for a month and a half before that, the community was dealing with it, but just with 6, 8, 10, 12 family units. So the faith-based organization was able to house those that they couldn't get out. But then we had a group dropped off on a Saturday, right, 50 or 60, and it was one of those. It was eye-opening. And we didn't want these individuals out in our community. I'm not saying they're bad people or whatever. We just did not want them out in the community. So at that time, they sort of sprung into action. The coalition sprung into action. They got as many people out as they could, asked for some donations, and then that's when the city stepped up and had a place to house them until they could get out the next day. On Sunday, we had another group of 78 or whatever let out again on Sunday. I will tell you that the consensus of this court, I believe, is, and we can all agree that we don't want them here. We're just going to need to come to some consensus as to how much, if we are gonna spend money, how much, and to what degree. Is it to get them out, which that is our focus? But at what point, if you can't get them out, what are we gonna do? You know, it's one of those deals that as much as we say we don't want to spend money, none of us want to spend the money. You know, I can tell you all that, but it's gonna be a hard decision tomorrow. We turn back. We're gonna have to do a little bit of soul-searching and come up with a plan. Sheriff, are you in the?
Yes, sir.
You had some numbers that we talked about earlier, and then you said that it was an investment and what you keep telling me.
Yes, I think that the safety and security of our community is primary, and also the health. We don't know if these individuals, what they may be carrying or whatever, but I look at it as an investment in the security of our community and the safety of our community. All across the border, I've talked to sheriffs in Arizona, they're having some of the same issues, but our difference here is that we don't have the infrastructure to move these people. We don't have the infrastructure to house them for, you know, any period of time. So, in my opinion, it's the best to just to get them moved through here as quick as possible.
Thank you. Chief Notes? You want me to use the microphone? Sorry.
Good evening, Judge, Commissioners.
You know, some of the data, some of what you've been through here recently, I mean, could you give us an update, if you don't mind?
Yes, sir. Every evening, we've had an officer stationed at the transition center, as well as a firefighter who's on standby, just to aid our officers and in case there's any medical issues that come up. The way this happened for us was much how you explained, Judge. We knew this had been going on at light loads that Border Patrol could control. One evening I got a call and pictures sent to me saying, Chief, there's about 60 people standing out in front of stripes. We got on the phone with each other real quick, a bunch of us, and what do we do? By then one church said, look, we've been helping these folks out, but there's no way we can help this many. What do we do? And that's kind of where this whole plan went into action. I think that's an important story to tell because I will tell you, regardless of what side of the fence you stand on, whether you're Republican, Democrat, whether you like this or not, unfortunately, when you're in the public service and public safety industry, you have a job to do. And when you get called out there and said, Chief, there's 60 people that have nothing, they're standing in the middle of the stripes, they're blocking the gas pumps, we don't want them on our property, what do? Do you chase them off into the neighborhood? I don't have a jail that can hold that capacity of people, and they're not really breaking the law. Luckily, the coalition stepped in that night. The first call I got was the sheriff saying, Chief, I've got about 40 people, they haven't eaten, can you help me buy some pizza? And that's what I did. We found a place to put these folks. These transition centers are important, and I'll tell you why. Even if you don't support what's happening or you're upset at the groups or the coalition, if it wasn't for those folks helping us move, the nightmare for me, the sheriff, and the rest of y'all who support us, there would be no way. Because these folks would end up out in the neighborhoods, they're gonna end up commingling with our citizens, and we're trying to stop that. The reason I have officers at the center every night is I don't want people taunting them. You know, we've had people go by and yell racial epithets. We've had some of those people want to wander off and walk into the neighborhoods because, you know, they're tired, they're hungry, they're destitute, they don't have any clothing. We're trying to find the fine line between putting a stop to that, keeping them where they need to be, being kind to them, and offering them a bus ride the next morning. If it wasn't for that, and we told the coalition, you need to go away, and we said, all entities are gonna shut this down, and we're gonna stop committing a dime, be ready for it to be in the neighborhoods. Because there's nowhere and no way that I have enough personnel to control that, nor there's a sheriff, nor Border Patrol to help me. They're tied up at this point. So the coalition and the transition center is the best place. I don't like having to assign personnel. I don't like having to pay overtime. I don't like my officers having to be out there. But unfortunately, That's just the way it is. I can confirm that these people, the majority of them are family units. The night that I got a call from the mayor and my city manager asking me to be out there is the night we had a big load dumped on us of about 80 people. We didn't have enough room, and we had to open up one of our other gymnasiums over at the Boys Club temporarily. The mayor ran out and grabbed a bus from the school district, and we both jumped on board with a guy to help him transport these people. And it was all single women or single fathers with very young infants or toddlers that, dirty diapers, some of them no clothes. What do you do? What do you do whether you like the situation or not, and you're sitting in the middle of the bus with people like that? It'll break your heart. And I encourage anybody who has any doubts about whether this is dangerous people, again, I'm not defending them, humble yourself for a moment, put your political views aside, go ask the coalition folks if you can just walk inside the center for 10 minutes. I think you'd have a different understanding of this. The things that I try to dispel from my standpoint as the chief of police is I've had all kinds of videos forwarded to me, social media, people claiming that there's Border Patrol agents who have been beat up, that are in the hospital, police officers assaulted. Folks, myself or the sheriff have not had such reports or investigations. And number two, the people that are coming across, those are the individuals we're dealing with as these mothers, single fathers, children. I understand they put themselves in that position. I don't encourage that. But like I said, when it's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and you get that call at Stripes, and you and the mayor go grab a school bus, and you're on board with these people, you really get a real bird's eye view of what's going on.
I appreciate everything you do. I know y'all have been in a very bad situation, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're going to have to come to a decision in tomorrow sometime. How much, if we're going to help, how much, in what part, whether we're going to help just in order to get them out. My opinion is that I don't want to spend the county tax dollars. It's not what I want to do. But on the other hand, I don't want these individuals roaming our streets. I mean, and it's that simple. You either spend a little bit now, or it's going to cost us a lot later on. One of the things is we need to look and see, run the numbers to see on these buses that we're running now if we can get them out of town. And it looks like we're going to be really close to the amount of people that are being released. We ought to be able to get them out. But if you have that 10, 15, 20 people that we just cannot get out, what are we going to do with them? I mean, that's something that this court as well as council, we're going to have to come up with a decision. I don't see any way out of not using taxpayer dollars. I mean, it's just, I mean, it'll be a decision of the court. I'm just 1 of 5, but I just don't see no way around it. And I know we've had the phone calls that don't do it, but I just don't want these people in our community. Because if we allow that, we're not going to get a handle on it. We're not. When I saw the pictures from Stripes that when they turned them loose, I had phone calls from both sides. I hate saying it, but I'll do it. I had people, pretty much let them starve. It ain't our problem. You need to go do more. I think there needs to be somewhere in the middle that we can meet just to make sure that we're safe here and we feel safe at night. And we don't have 100 or 1,000 people now because we weren't able to transition them out of our county. But that's going to be something that we're going to have to decide. Commissioners?
I agree a lot with what you're saying, Judge. I don't want to spend one single penny of our tax dollars, but I understand I also don't want them in our community. I've lived in this town my whole life, and never once have I locked a deadbolt on my door, but I do that now. It's a scary thought, and I have a difficult time spending local taxpayers' money on a federal problem. But unfortunately, the federal government has failed us, at least the Washington bunch, and have left us with this issue. It's difficult for me to say, let's spend local taxpayer money without at least filing a lawsuit against the federal government to reimburse us. But we have been backed in a corner by our representatives. and we owe our constituents the right to be safe. And unfortunately, I think we're stuck between a rock and a hard spot on the fact that I do agree with the judge on this. I'd rather have them all in one place that we can deal with it than roaming this entire community. I am not happy about if we make a decision to spend taxpayers' money on this, and I agree we need to get them out of here as quickly as we can. But I would hope that between the county and the city, we would at least put as much effort as we can on the federal government to reimburse whatever cost we have on this. And I'm not above spending money to put them on a bus and drop them off at the Capitol in Washington either, but we need to get our costs reimbursed because they created this mess. We did not. And it is not fair to our taxpayers in this county and in this city to have to pick up the tab for this mess that they have created. You know, the Border Patrol has done a phenomenal job dealing with what they have been given. And I put no blame on them whatsoever, but I definitely put a lot of blame on our people in Washington. And it is time that they step up to the plate and figure out how they're going to help us resolve this issue.
Just want to let the people know here, okay? I've been taking down some notes here for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. With some of my constituents. I've had 13 different people that they said they would be willing to spend some taxpayer money, a little bit, if it was to get these people out of here, up to San Antonio, wherever it might be, relatives, of course we're talking about the families. So, you know, I'm all for, you know, don't want to spend taxpayer money to do something that we didn't create, but, you know, that's what I'm all for, you know, just to move on these people, get them out of here. And just like the judge said, nothing personal, nothing, I'm all for helping people, but in this type of situation, you know, I just want to let people know where I stand. I actually had a visit to the local Stripes, McDonald's and Stripes over on Gibbs this past weekend, Sunday morning as a matter of fact, and I sent out a text. I got there probably about 10 o'clock early in the morning, and I noticed something different. There were some people standing outside the Stripes, and for the first time it felt a little bit uncomfortable. You know, people there, they were asking to push for money, but the way, you know, I was approached, I surely wouldn't want my daughter to be there by herself, you know, being approached the way I was approached, asking for money. So, and of course, people told me they were on their way to Houston. I listened to them, but to me, you know, I just felt a little bit awkward on that. But, you know, I don't know if Commissioner Wardlaw has anything to say, but, and I think this lady here had a question, Judge.
Commissioner Ward?
I agree with the comments been made. I oppose tax money being paid. I feel as long as the tax money's paid, Congressman isn't gonna do anything. The Congress they'll just they'll let us carry the ball and it'll go on, and I don't see it. And hey, I will donate to charity. Somebody needs help, all they do is come see me and I'll help them. But this thing is a federal problem. It's a problem of the U.S. Congress. And how many congressmen do we have here? Ms. Alma?
I'm running for congressman.
Okay.
Our congressman won't show up.
If we had a congressman here, we could address the congressman.
Yes, sir.
And that's what
Real hard.
Excuse me. We're not just gonna go
Don't
chaotic.
get political.
So
We're good.
that's where I stand on this, is I oppose spending county tax money on this situation. And if somebody has a problem with that, they just come to my precinct, and I have people in my precinct that need help just as bad or worse than these. And so, thank you.
Real quick.
Why can't you ask the businesses if they want to donate money?
Ma'am? I haven't opened it up to the public, and I'm not gonna open it up to the public, okay? There's nothing on here for citizens' comments. We're up. Okay? Real quick,
Did you decide what you want to do, Your Honor?
it's not open to citizen comments. No, ma'am. We're not gonna turn this into a circus.
It's not open to citizen comments, you decide what you want to do.
All of us suggest is go to the businesses and if they want to.
Ma'am.
Give us a.
And we've already done that. We've already done that.
And give them a tax break.
Ma'am.
Support.
We're gonna recess until tomorrow at 6:30, which will be here tomorrow. Ma'am,
You do not have our support. You should have
Where the hell is he
I
at?
have a motion to recess until tomorrow at 6:30, and if y'all wanna show up tomorrow.
Oh, last
I have a motion and a second. I have a motion by the judge, second by Commissioner Middleton. All those in favor? 4-0 vote. Have a good evening.